Hello, everybody. It is the Brian and Dan hour. Well, Brian had to be out tonight. He may be able to come in later, like he has before, but something came up and he wasn't able to be there. So you're stuck with me. Fortunately, it's not just me. I do have a guest tonight, and I'm excited to have him on here because I've seen him in several events I've been in, and he does amazing work. So I'm excited to talk to him and have him tell you about what he does. So, as we get started, don't forget to like and share this, and definitely if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. And if you have any questions, don't forget you can pop them on here. I will see them from wherever you are at. I can see your questions and we can ask. Again, this one's going to be a little bit different than we're used to because this is not an author, which we've had authors and actors on here before. This is definitely not one of those. So you might have some interesting questions to ask, and I hope you do. So jump on in, and again, as I said, like and share this. So right now, for me, I was going to tell you about what I've been working on recently. For the Heroes Rising people out there, I have been working on special stories, kind of a secret project for a different game, but it actually has to do with Heroes Rising. So I'm not going to spoil too much about that, but if you read the last story in the Heroes Rising universe, you will have an idea of kind of what's about to happen. But it's a little complicated, and I'm excited about it because it's different, and I love this. I love trying different things. As for me, I'm definitely working on several different projects. I've got several books I've been working on, all at the same time, which is really confusing. But I can do it. I can do it. And for me, it's a little different. I'm actually working on several Christian fiction books at the same time. Usually, I don't do that, but that's been an interesting experience. Oh, hello, Mr. John Clark. Thank you for joining in. And Amber, thank you, Amber. As I said, Brian is not here tonight. He had to be out, but he might be able to log in later. So you're stuck with me. And it means I get to ramble on aimlessly for a little while here. So just again to tell you another thing I have worked on recently, I finally got mine in. I showed it last week. I love showing this off. Is my very first actual comic based in one of my book series, in the Bark book series, and I'm hoping to do more. I am very excited about this. I like how it's turned out, and I would like to do more Bark comics. It's not out yet. Last week I said it was available, but it's not at the moment. We're working on getting it on. Amazon has a print on demand and a digital comic book service, but Star Child Comics that has done this is new. They're brand new, and they're now having to test those waters and figure it out. And if anything, Amazon is just like Facebook, like a lot of places. Every day you go on to do something, the same thing you did yesterday. Well, they've changed all the functions, so now you have to figure out all the little different things you have to do. So we are in the middle of doing that. So hello, Valerie's joined us, and Barbara. Hello, everybody. As I keep saying, Brian is not here. It's just me right now, but hopefully he will join us tonight. Again, we have a great guest. He is a person I have met at Comic Cons before, and he's done some great work. I don't want to spoil too much about it. He makes props, but they're really cool. First time I ever saw one of his props, it just blew me away, and I want to have him talk about those. So again, like, share. People are doing this. Thank you very much. Brian and I are working on a special project. He has started this where he is doing a podcast that's pre-recorded where he is reading parts of chapters of the book he's working on. And it encouraged me to give that a try because I know some authors. I know of some very well-known authors who do this, where they do a podcast that you can sign up for and listen to them read chapters of their books along the way. And there's some authors, in fact, we've had some on here who have had these podcasts going for years, and they have hundreds and some of them even thousands of episodes where they have read pieces of chapters or whole chapters, and they go through a whole story, whole series. And I would like to do that. And so Brian and I, using the same platform, are going to give that a shot. And I'm going to try out reading one of my stories live, but recorded as a podcast and seeing how well that turns out. And I have a few stories that I've never published. They were literally serial type stories I wrote. In fact, one of them I wrote for a different online game before I started working for Game Craftsman. And this online game itself folded a few years ago before I actually got to interact with it, work with them on it. And so I read some of it before on my Facebook podcast thing I did a while back. Well, I'd like to try it again because I really love the story and it works well as a serialized, like, episodic adventure. And so to me, I'd like to break it up into smaller chapters. I did long chapters before that were 45 minutes a piece sometimes. And these podcasts typically are like 20 minutes. So I'd like to break the chapters up even more, have more episodes, which is great. People can have a lot to follow, but I'd like to do that and read them so that people can enjoy the story. And the cool thing is that if you jump in and I'm on like chapter 40 or episode 500, they're all on there. So if you like mine, you want to, and you'll find somebody you want to trade, check this out. Well, they can go there and go back to the beginning and listen to the story up to the current one. They can binge it if they want to, or just at their own pace, which is one of the cool things about a lot of podcasting. So that's one of our plans we are working on. I know Brian has already started his. So you can check his out. He's working through some of the stories he's currently writing, his first book. So my other books, a lot of my books are with publishers. So I kind of have to talk to them and negotiate if we want to do this. But I have these ones that are unpublished are completely just what I want to do with them. So that's why I'm thinking about starting with those. And I would hope you all, partake of that and enjoy it because it'll be free. It'll be free to listen to and participate in, ask questions and join in that. So anyways, again, without Brian here, it's kind of me rambling by myself for a bit. So I will go ahead and bring on Mr. John Marks as our guest tonight. And as I said, he is a prop maker that is freaking amazing. And I've encountered him at a lot of Comic-Cons, which he frequents way more than I do. So let me introduce Mr. John Marks.
Hey, what's going on, Dan?
Having fun talking to myself. It feels like having.
I know that. You talk about working props and building them on your own. You're having a lot of conversations by yourself. I'm telling you. So
yeah, I can imagine. You could build your own Wilson and just have sit over here and
maybe that's nice. That's a good one. I'll do that next time.
Yep. So okay, how I like to start when I bring a guest on is just to say, introduce yourself and tell people what you do.
Okay, well, my name is John Marks, as you had mentioned. I'm a prop builder, a special effects artist, professional sculptor, a little bit of everything. I do cosplay as well, but primarily it's building large critters that I take to these shows and do photo ops. A few years back, I started with building a Hulk full scale and had people come take pictures of that. And then the next year, I did Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon full scale. So people took pictures of that and did that for a couple of years. And then I decided to try to do the Iron Giant full scale. That was challenging, just the head and the hand. And then finally, the third installment of the How to Train Your Dragon movies came out and did the Light Fury as well. And these last couple of years, we've been touring with the Battle Cats. Well, I call them Battle Cats, but Battle Cat and Panther from He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. These are full-scale critters that people can get up on top of and take pictures from. And we raise money for Make-A-Wish, which is a nice kind of added bonus, which people seem to appreciate. So. Yep.
Yes, I had a cousin who was going through leukemia that got a trip from Make-A-Wish. So
that's wonderful.
I know about the whole organization. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, they're very good. I've heard nothing but good stuff about them.
So okay, now I'm curious. Now you say you special effects, and did you do this before for like movies or studios or something, or?
Yeah, I kind of fell into it backwards. I do have an art degree. I was trying to do something with the art degree. I went to Florida to learn special effects or learn mold making and casting, this sort of thing. It was just one of those special schools, the short-term things. Tried to get into the business then. This is when I was young, 25 or whatever. I didn't like it. It was very food by the hand to mouth or whatever. There was no job security. There was no benefits or anything. So you really had to, you'd wake up one morning, you find out a job, you had to drive like 45 minutes to wherever it was and then do it. And then you don't know when you're working again. So it was like, for me, I was like, no, I found something stable. So for a while, I was actually a personal trainer for about 10 years there. And I was doing small stuff on the side, always sculpting small things. But always during Halloween, of course, or whatever, I would go big. I'd make something elaborate. And finally, a few years back, I think it was 7 years now, I finally decided to get around to building this Hulk that I had this idea to make into a costume. And I was like, well, let's see if it'll work. And it was too big; it would have killed me if I tried to wear it. So I was like, okay, let's not do that. And I'd heard about these Comic Cons, and I was like, well, what happens if I just put it in a booth and see if somebody wanted to take a picture with it? And I did better in that weekend than I did 2.5 months. I made more in a weekend than I did 2.5 months of the job I was working in. So I'm like, I'm doing the wrong thing. And so I quit my job 2 weeks later, put my thing in, and I was like, oh, let's see how far this guy goes. And I knew the Hulk wasn't all, I brought other pieces. I had a 10 by 10 space. So I brought all these other pieces that I'd been working on over the years and showed those off. And people were like, what are you going to build next? What are you going to build next? And I decided about the third show into that, I took a little voting ballot and had 4 different ideas. And Toothless was the last idea that I had. And to my dummy brain was like, well, nobody's going to know this dragon. They don't know. And like a moron, of course, everybody was checking that off, going, I want to see that. When are you going to make that? So I spent about 4.5 months that at the end of that season, just threw myself into it and built it and brought it in the next year. And it was luckily a success. And yeah. So I just kind of learned from small getting bigger. I kept trying bigger stuff every year, and it just kind of went from there. So the sculpting helped, but then you get to learn engineering when you get to larger stuff, and then how you break it from one vehicle down into another vehicle that you got to make it fit into. And so, yeah.
Yeah, every time I've seen these at the show, my very first thought is that must have been fun transporting.
Everybody asked me that. It's, when I first started, I had a Twinkie truck, an old Twinkie truck. That was how I got around. It was an old diesel 12-foot nightmare. It only went 57 miles per hour. It had no AC. But I was like, if I'm going to do this, I got to throw money in to see what that did. And Toothless actually had to be designed in 6 parts because I couldn't fit it into I had to go into that thing. So he was Tetrised in. And then luckily, more recently, I finally was able to invest in a 24-foot trailer, which makes loading in and loading out a lot easier. With the Battle Cats now, I got wiser. I put we can raise those up and put skits under them, and they can simply roll in and roll out pretty much all one piece, with the exception of the part of the saddle that has to come off. And everything else is lightweight styrofoam, and with the exception of the background weight and some, it's pretty light. The cats themselves weigh about 400 pounds each, so. With wheels, it's not a problem, but sometimes they park you pretty far away from where you got to be set up. And so, yeah, sometimes you're working out for the weekend. So it can be fun. It can be a challenge, let's just say. But yeah,
I load in a few 100 pounds of books, and that's a challenge. So
yeah, I don't relish you guys with the smaller stuff because it's a lot of trips for you all. So.
Yes, it is. Especially some Comic Cons that are like, our loading is over here at Dock A, and your booth is it's over here 4 miles down the way. I'm like,
yeah,
hey, that's great.
The Iron Giant was 25 pieces with the hand and all assembled, and we were at one con. I think it was about 300 yards from where we were having to set up, and you're talking about. It took us, I don't know how long to set that. It was 2 hours to get the pieces to where the location was, and still another 4 to set up. And it was a long weekend, let me tell you. So,
yeah, the first time I met you was at the Fanboy in Knoxville when you had Toothless. It was Toothless was the first one I ever saw, because where I was sitting, my booth looked straight down, and I could just see the dragon. I didn't even see Ollie, but I just saw the dragon. And the whole weekend, because that was one of my first. I was actually signing books at my whole weekend. People were like. Need my attention. I'm like, wow, Toothless. The whole week. Yeah, and I think Barbara Eden was sitting next to you at that one.
That was the first year I did that Knoxville, and how lucky am I that I hate to say that, but the show wasn't going very quick. There wasn't a lot of people. I got Barbara Eden over on top of Toothless. I got Don Wells, who was Marianne from Gilligan's Island. I got Sam Jones from Flash Gordon. Even Nichelle Nichols came by and stood next to him. Nichelle was already kind of in a wheelchair at that point, but she stood up next to him, and it was like, oh my God, how big a moment was that? I was like I like swinging and getting all these celebrities, and it was awesome. So, that was a big day. I remember that weekend.
Yeah, I actually remember I was there when Barbara Eden got to sit on it and get the pictures made with it, because I walked over there because Barbara, I'm a classic TV fan. I love
Oh,
classic
sure.
television. And I mean, before the show, I was watching Perry Mason. So I'm walking down there and I see her on that, and I got a bad picture at a distance of her holding up an axe and on the. I'm like,
She was
I
having
love
fun
this.
with it.
I love this. I love the fact
She
that
was having
they just
fun
let
with it.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So.
then Don Wells wasn't going to do it. She's like, "Wait, Barbara got up there," and she's like, I found out that Barbara was 85 at the time,
Mhm.
and Don was 77. We lost her recently, but she was like, "Oh wait, if Barbara's going up, I'm going up," and I'm like,
Mhm.
"Okay, cool," like, so that was awesome, and that was actually, I think Barbara was the very first celebrity that I got to do that. So I was like, "Wow, this is a great show." And then
Have
the
you?
year following, we had I had William Zapka is it Zapka the
Mhm.
plays Johnny in Karate Kid, the Cobra Kai.
Oh yeah, yeah. Zapka.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that was before the show had blown up to the new Netflix, before Netflix had picked it up.
yeah.
And he was awesome. He came on by. He's on his own accord. He just walked on by. He's like, "Dude, my kids are going to kill me. Can I do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, heck yeah, Johnny, sweep the
Oh
leg,
yeah.
man. Do what you got to do."
I've wondered, have you had unusual encounters with either celebrities or particularly people who have been connected to one of the props that you've made?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say that on like online when I first started building Toothless, I'd posted it. There were people contacting me and letting me know that they were part of the team that designed it for the movies, and I'm like, man, that's cool. And they were giving me props, and I was like, man, thank you so much. That's a big thing. But I know emotionally, a lot of people have come up and been they get very overwhelmed by seeing the dragon in person, Toothless especially. It was like, and you can see that on them, and you're like, you tell them to touch their face, the face of the dragon, like they do in the movie, and you'll see grown people with just tears in their eyes and just being very emotional, whatever. I had two marriage proposals done in front of it, both at the same show, but it was like, that was crazy. As for celebrities, I was lucky enough to get Jay Baruchel, who played Hiccup.
Hmm.
Yeah, he got up on him in Montreal, and that was just a dumb luck weekend because he was just there for he has his own comic book, I guess, or was designing one, and decided to just come down for that show to help promote it. And I'm like, wait, Hiccup's here? I'm like, can you bring him over? And it took him all weekend, but he finally came on by. But it was fantastic. Yeah, I was like, oh man. So, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anybody was like, oh, I'm sorry. I should also say Alan Oppenheimer, who played Skeletor.
Hmm.
We got really, that was another lucky break. The only show we got in 2020 was at Richmond GalaxyCon, and he just happened to be there, and I guess he heard about the cats, because I had the battle cats, and that was 2 years ago or whatever. And he just came on by that Friday, and he's like, what can I do? I'd love to whatever. And I built a sword of power that lights up, and he's like, I'll hold that. And he was 90 at the time. I like walked him up we have this little ramp or whatever that he could stand on top of, and it's kind of like pulling the sword out of stone kind of thing. And I gave it to him, and it was like, that was a big moment. And then the next year he came by for Cincinnati, I think it was, Expo, and he held the Havoc staff, which at that point I had redesigned, and it lit up and everything. And it was like, that's cool to have Skeletor hold his, it's like, oh, so those are big moments.
Oh yeah.
You gotta try to hold on to those.
Yeah, I think the closest I've ever come to that is I do a little artwork on myself, and I have drawn a picture of Invader Zim fighting against Klingons, and the guy who did the voice
Okay.
for Invader Zim, he got a hold of the picture at my booth, and there's text all over. He's reading it in the voice of the character. I was like,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, that's the closest I've
That's
ever come
awesome.
to that.
That's awesome. Yeah. We had Alan call us boobs, we were like, just call us the boobs. You boob, it's like, that was a lot of fun. So,
Hmm.
it's old school stuff, but yeah, that was a great time.
So yes, I
But
think that the Toothless was a groundbreaking thing, because that one I have to say, from my own perspective, it was very accurate. And
I appreciate that. Thank you. I was painstaking about the head. It took me 200 hours just to build the head. I knew that the eyes had to sell it. They had to read true. And I found a still of him where they had done a lot of the detail on his, like all the bumps in his head and stuff.
mhm.
And I even got to a point where once I laid it out, I just drew in every like bump just as much as I could accurately, screen accurately, so that it would read true to the character. and then the rest of it was just trying to figure out length, scale, whatever, and doing whatever I could to help me guess how big he was. And a lot of people are saying that they thought he was a little bit bigger than he probably would have been. But I kind of look at it as, well, Jay got up on there and he's like 6'1", and I kind of based Hiccup as sort of around my height, like 5'9" or whatever. So it fit him pretty well. I had to reach for the pedals, so it was like I may have overshot it a little bit, but I think people to be honest, I think it lends itself, especially if you're kind of the child at heart, especially with like the battle cats and stuff, and you're seeing this little action figure on stuff, you thinking to yourself as a kid sitting on this, how big this cat must be underneath you. And it's like, I think it brings that sort of immersion for you a little bit better. So I call it a happy accident. We'll call it a happy accident.
Attention to details is a skill that people severely undervalue, I think, personally.
Yeah, they say the devil's in the details, but I think it really does bring it home when you can capture those little things, those little nuances that people appreciate and see. It keeps that suspension of disbelief a little bit longer, because it's like, you see a lot of stuff around it, you're like, no, that looks not so good, whatever. But I try the best I can. I mean, obviously it's always difficult because you're traveling with it. There's only so much you can bring in and how much you're going to actually do for that space in the short amount of time you're there. I do hope down the road at some point to have like a building that I could do permanent setups where I could throw more work into it, make it more elaborate, and but you do what you can do.
Yeah, I've often wondered if you have this on display somewhere that all the time, but I don't suppose.
I wish. I'm still looking into it. I've had some inquiries. A drive-in theater had been asking whether or not I could make something that would be, for the elements and be able to live, whatever. And I would love to do that. The only difficulty with that right now is that they're trying to make sure that nobody would mess with it in their, off hours or whatever, people coming in and vandalizing or whatever. So it's like, okay, when you figure that out, let me know, so, but I would love to have a permanent display somewhere. That'd be fun.
That would be cool to see some of this stuff,
Yeah.
because there's so much work in there and so much, greatness to this. And it's like, I have to hunt down a Comic-Con, although that's great because people come to it and get pictures.
Yeah.
I would say I talking about detail from an author's perspective. I always push that for any art form. It's some of the little things that really do make stuff grow. As recently, I was writing a very short little vignette style story for a different game, and in it, every single vignette is a different period of history in which a bad guy is going and capturing military geniuses throughout history right before they die and using them in the future. That's all sci-fi. Well, I've spent more time researching every single one of those to get a name of a person, a place, how they died, where they died. That was all real. Every single one of those. If the people in the game read the story clearly, every single person, every detail is correct except for an alien coming from the future and taking him away. That I can't prove.
I mean, it helps. That's awesome. It's like, and if anybody happens to know about this particular person in history, they're gonna be like, damn, that's exactly what it was. How that person and all that stuff. So it does definitely pull them into that belief of what's going on there. So I totally understand that. Totally get it. So that's awesome.
I'm going to ask you about what you're working on now, but first I wanted to talk about your cosplaying, because people, if you've not been to a Comic-Con, you are missing some of the best cosplaying that he can come up with. First time he was Tony Stark.
Yeah,
I had people come by my booth going, I think the real Iron Man's here, and I was like, Robert Downey Jr. is not here this weekend, and they pointed to you, and I'm like, oh my god, you pulled it off.
Yeah, every once in a while I think it's the weight in the face or whatever, and I shave the beard right, and I get the glasses going. It's funny. There's a few people that I've thrown. I've watched this poor girl like fall apart because she thought it was him, and I had to convince her that it was like, so that's a big compliment. That means I did it right. But it's like, I mean, some people aren't thrown at all, but it's fun to see some people are getting really excited about it. And I guess I have that face, so it lends itself to certain characters. I get a lot of Jeffrey Dean Morgan where I do like Negan and stuff, and people get excited about that one. But I like to push it to the other side of it where, I don't look like that person at all. Like I just did Nandor from What We Do in the Shadows.
Mm.
The character. I don't know if you watched the show at all, but he had a larger nose and the brow, and I sculpted all that to create that look, so I don't look really anything like myself. But then I go back and I'll do like Bruce Campbell or something that from like Evil Dead, and I'll do the nose and the just to see what I can do to push away, to try different things, and because I don't want to just be that one trick pony, kind of thing. So
Have you met Bruce?
I have. You know what? Talk about Knoxville. He actually had walked by the booth at one point, and I missed him because we were talking to somebody else at the time. And I'm like, damn it. So, oh well.
If you don't know this, they filmed several Evil Dead movies in East Tennessee, right outside of Morristown. That's where I
Okay.
lived for 18 years. I lived like 5 minutes from the old shack that they filmed in.
Yeah.
And so he was in the area a lot, and I met him on multiple occasions. And yeah, if you pulled off a good Evil Dead, he would love it. Absolutely. I
I
know
hope
him.
to meet him. I would do it again if I find out he's going to be at a show. I will. I had a lot of fun with that costume last year. I had to rush the build with the straps and stuff like that, but I had built I even had the chainsaw where it had like a little device in it that you could hit it and turn the sound effect on, so it would sound like it was running the chainsaw. And I did the whole, the shotgun and the whole thing. I had a lot of fun with it. But yeah, I'd love to meet him. It's some celebrities who just haven't quite had a time to, and you're working the show, so you can't really get away often. But yeah, he'd be a lot of fun. I hear he's a character. So.
Oh yeah, he's definitely a character, but he's
Well,
great.
didn't they
He's
shoot
fun.
some of it in Grand Rapids?
Yeah, they up here. They did some. I think the last one they did more broadly. They did the first couple on seriously shoestring budget. In fact, I think half the property they shot on in East Tennessee they weren't legally allowed to. So, but there's probably stills
I
back
love
there, so
that.
they won't call the
I
police.
love that. You got to do what you got to do. That's so funny. I just
Yeah.
watched. They were doing the how they did Halloween, the original Halloween. It was done with like a $300,000 budget or something, and they were just, the stuff that they got away with to make to pull it off.
Yeah.
So that's fun. That's fun. I mean, but honestly, that's where the creativity comes in. That you get too much money and you kind of lose that, where you have to come up with something original. And sometimes it's the best stuff when you have to fake something, and it's almost like something in the universe is trying to help you a little bit with that one. So.
Yeah, well, it's also I think it's funny that when Disney took over Star Wars, they flipped back to having more puppeteer, more actual physical props
Yep.
versus when Lucas said, "Oh, let's CGI everything."
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not
No.
going to
No.
complain. I love Star Wars,
Yeah.
but I think they lost something when they started CGIing it so over the
Yeah.
top. It felt not like Star Wars as much. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into the story elements because I could go on for a whole 5
No,
hours.
I know. I think a lot of it lends itself to the actors too, whereas they actually have something to play against versus a green screen, which I would think would be a nightmare because you got nothing to play with. But it's I mean, honestly, except for the ships and stuff, which all made sense. You got these whatever, but the practical effects. That's the way to go. I love that what they did. There's some of that stuff is mind blowing what they can do now. The animatronics and the whatever going on there. I'm like. And I mean, I can sculpt stuff, but when it gets to that, making articulation, and I'm just like, oh, please teach me how to do that. I'd love to know. So,
Yeah. Yeah, there's I don't want it to be a lost art form. It's like when Disney decided to do a Princess and the Frog when they went back and got their old artists to do traditional Disney animation after just doing CGI movies for so long. People were like, "Oh, this is amazing." I'm like, looking at it going,
yeah,
this is art form we don't need to lose.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that,
I mean, I like the computer, what computer can do to shortcut a lot of stuff, but it's
Mhm.
also, there is something that more organicness to it. That's just, it's, yeah, there's art there, and you like to see the art. So,
So with this talking about the cosplaying here, you have special effects background. Did that also
mm,
include like makeup and
yeah,
like that Westmore style stuff? Is that you
yeah.
know? Where
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt I was unfortunately right in the cusp when I learned my stuff mostly about foam latex. A lot of stuff nowadays are silicone based. I've dabbled with it a little bit, but primarily I kind of stick with smaller appliances. So foam latex is usually the way to go, or a stuff called flex foam at 3, which is a cheater's kind of thing because it's a 1 to 2 part liquid that you can just pour in and expands and you're done. There's no like whipping and getting the air to fluff up in there and all that kind of stuff. It saves you a lot of time. So since I'm not being paid necessarily, I'm just trying to get it done and have fun with it, So
So a couple questions. First one is, what was your favorite cosplay costume to do? One you were just you would love doing and like to redo and every time you get a chance.
I mean, I love doing Beetlejuice. He's a lot of fun. I do the voice, and you can act like the clown, and people and you're walking down the street, and everybody knows that's who you are. So they're like
Mhm.
screaming, like Beetlejuice, 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 and you're like, I never know what to say. I usually say it's showtime, and I get so excited, and it's like, okay, so that works. But he's a lot of fun just because you can have the mannerisms. I did the when Jack Sparrow was big. That was a lot of fun to do. Captain Jack and being a little drunk and doing the mannerisms, and that's a lot of fun, to play act. Um, Willy Wonka was a lot of fun too, because that you could really see people getting a little bit emotional about some of that too. So you kind of play into that a little too. So
Which
um,
Willy Wonka?
oh, the original Willy Gene Wilder's version. I
Okay.
did an appliance for my nose, which I was able to get it just pretty close to it, and it had the wig and the whole outfit. And I even went so far as to print out the golden tickets. I had several of them that I could give to people, and had like prizes if people came back to the booth. I gave them to some of the vendors, and they said, "Give it to a kid that you think might be deserving of this, and I'll have like a little bag of chocolate or whatever I had for him for that weekend, or whatever." So that was fun. I was just trying to kind of do something different. I was getting a little bored, so that was a lot of fun. Yeah. So I'm trying to think what other one that would be that I'd like to do again. I'm going to do Nandor again. This is so lucky. I'm so lucky to do what I do, because sometimes people see what I do as a costume instead of the prop, and then they think, darn, that's pretty good. And the guy that plays Guillermo in the series, do you watch the series?
No, I've not seen that one.
Oh shoot. Okay. Well, he's pretty much the main character, but it's a spoof on vampires. It's they're making fun of these vampires that have been around. They're kind of
Oh,
idiots,
yeah, yeah.
but it's incredibly well done. It's got some great special effects going on. They grab all these celebrities that had been vampires at some point in their career, like Danny Trejo and Pee Wee Herman and people from True Blood and this sort of thing, and they keep making these cameos. Mark Hamill's in it. He does a few things. Even Haley Joel Osment plays eventually like a zombie, and so it's fantastic. So, but the actor that plays one of the familiar for the main character Nandor, he's going to be at this con down in Florida called Spookala, and they've asked me to try to cosplay. My girlfriend and I she plays Naja, which is one of the other vampires, and they've asked us to cosplay down there for him or with us, so they kind of do a thing for that. So that's, how cool is that? So we're excited about that one. And we're
So
going to go
okay.
up to, I'm sorry, I should say, we're going to go up to Bangor, Maine, not this, where we're leaving early next week, but it's next weekend. And that's where Stephen King's, as you may know, Stephen King's house
Mhm.
is. And so, of course, we got to do tribute to the King, and we're going to
Of
be
course.
doing. I'll be doing Jack from The Shining, and
Mhm.
she'll be doing. Oh gosh, Misery.
Oh, oh
I can't
goodness.
think of the character. Oh, I've just blanked. This is terrible.
This is bad on me too.
Kathy Bates'
Yeah,
character, but I suddenly blanked on the character. But yes,
yeah.
so we're gonna have fun with that. Cock a duty. So.
Uh, so you're not going to do Carrie and have her covered in pig's
You
blood
know
and
what? That's funny you mentioned that, because we had a blast doing this. We went to Salem. One of the things that she's a huge Hocus Pocus fan, but we went to Salem this last year, and one of the parties that we got to go to, the theme was Red Rum, Stephen King,
mhm.
and we dressed as the twin sisters. Her and I dressed as them, but the spinoff was we decided to do another mashup. So she did Carrie but dressed as the sister. So she's covered in blood, and she's got her little tiara on. And I went as the oh gosh, what's his name? Tim Curry's version of Pennywise.
It.
But I had
Yes.
the red hair styled the same way as her hair was. So it was like the longer, but I'm wearing the dress, and and I'm holding the balloon, and I got the makeup and the big head and the whole thing. And it was like so much fun. We had like, blast walking through Salem dressed like that. So yeah, that was fun. It's good stuff. We get to horse around a little bit sometimes. So it's good. It's a good gig.
So the next question is, what is a cosplay you want to do that you're eager to get to work on?
I would love to do Moon Knight. I keep seeing Moon Knight all over the place, but I'm not going to have time. I wish I could. I love the design. I love the jacket version, the vest and the whatever. I thought I'd cheat it and just buy the costume somewhere. There's a nice version of the vest, I guess, somewhere. But I'm like, I don't know. I know that everybody's going to be doing it, so it's going to be fun to watch what other people come up with. But he used to be one of my favorite comic book characters. But I love this new series, and I'm having fun seeing how it's evolving and kind of waiting for the next show. But yeah, I don't know. What other one? There's got to be something else. I'll think about it. Let me get back to you on that. I'll think about it. But that one's springing to mind because I just saw the show tonight. So
yeah. So okay, now we've talked about it before the show, but if you follow his page, you know quite a bit about this. But what are you working on right now?
So, I've been asking a lot of people what they want to see next, and everybody's like, well, I'd love to see something big. I want to see something big and everything. And I'm like, the one thing that I haven't really tapped into was the anime market, and the show Avatar: The Last Airbender. People kept bringing that up, and oh my gosh, you should make Appa. You should make the flying bison. And I was like, whoa, he's huge. I'm like, let me think about that. And I decided, I think I figured out a way I think I could pull it off and still get it into a 24-foot trailer that's only got a 7x6.5 door. So I'm starting to do the design works and breaking the parts up. I just finished the feet today. I'm working on his, I built the eyes. I started to make the head a little bit, but that's going to take some time. But in the meantime, I was waiting for a place to build it because right now I'm having to build it outside. I started making some of the smaller parts for the booth. So like Sokka's weapons, excuse me if I get the name wrong. I built Momo. I built, what else? So just mostly his weapons, the boomerang and that kind of thing right now. And I'm starting to try to think of an idea how we could do Aang's, what do you call it? The spinning
Glider
ball that he travels on.
The air ball?
The air ball. I'd like to make it, if I could figure out a way to make it look like it's swirling inside that people could still safely stand on. That's the problem with clear, if you're using clear resin, it'd have to be an awfully thick clear resin because I'd be very nervous about it and then somebody hurting themselves. So yeah, I'm running some ideas in my head. We'll see what I come up with if I can do it. But yeah.
So I know you can you show us some of those props?
Of course, yeah. I brought in a couple things. One of the ones I liked. I saw a rendering online. They did a more authentic version of Sokka's weapons. They were able to make it look like it was something out of like a walrus's bone. So I try to make his club weapon, and I put in some of the tribal markings, and even I think it's the water tribe, or actually maybe the airbending tribe. No, it's the water, or I don't know if I can bring it in a little closer. But I had fun with it, just like somebody would etch it out. I didn't want to make it too clean because I'm thinking, Sokka's probably not an artist, but he wanted to make it put some detail in there, have fun with it. I did his boomerang. I thought it might be a nice little nod to put in the koi, the koi fish.
Mm-hmm.
So right there, and then I did again the water tribe, which is right there. Put that in there. Pretty lightweight. They're made of foam, EVA foam with a little bit of expandable foam on there. Stuff called Foam at 3, sanded out and coated with the stuff called Epsilon, which makes it a little bit stronger. It's lightweight. Hopefully, like I was telling you earlier, I hope nobody starts chucking this thing because it may not take that much of a beating on the concrete or whatever. We'll see. And then the other weapon I did for him, I decided to do the meteorite sword. the black sword. And I don't know if you can see it in this light because it's too dark
Yeah, the
in
screen's kind of
here.
reflecting too much off of it, but there's a
There might be, but there's a gold swirl that I decided to put in there to kind of, it's black from a distance, but up close, you can see kind of, they put that kind of design into it. And then I was able to create the handle and let me go this way with it. No, I had it right the first time.
yeah.
So yeah, I had fun with it. And it's got some good weight to it. I think people will like the fact that it's got a little heft and, so big nod there. And then of course the piece of resistance, I couldn't do Appa without Momo. And so Momo here, let me see if I can get him to work today because he's been difficult. But I'm going to try to make his head go. So I have a little articulation. I'm trying to make that a little better. The hands and the feet are posable as well as the tail, I believe. So I can, if people want to get a picture with him sitting on their lap or whatever, like they can, let me try to get it over. There you go. So, you know, a lot of fun. So very, very pretty lightweight. Put a wire lining inside him so it is posable, and he's made out of a stuff called Flex Foam 3, which is a kind of a soft foam. Once you mix the two parts up, it's a squishier, almost like foam rubber. So that's what I'm currently wearing. I wish I could show you the feet, but they're in the garage, and I have to pull it all out. But the feet are good size. The head itself will be around 7 by 7. Give or take. Again, I still got to be able to make sure that I can get that part through the door. The body, I'm actually going to design using those lake blobs that people can jump on one end and propel their friend out on the other end. That's going to be the main body so that I can remove all that air and collapse it all and put it into the trailer. So I have ideas. We'll see if they work. So, you know, it's always, you don't know until you're right there on top of it. And then you're like, okay, this will work or this won't. So, yeah.
Well, if it all fails, you could fill the lake blob with helium and just have an Appa flying above the truck as you go.
Oh man, I wish there'd be enough air to get that up off the ground. That darn blob is heavy, man. I'm not messing with you. That thing, I was trying to pick it up, and it weighs at least 100 pounds. It's like, yeah, it's a heft. I'm trying to figure out a way to get it all on wheels so that we can. It's going to be like kind of a train thing that we can roll it in and save us a lot of work. I would like to design it that this one can be built and put up in about an hour, which would be lovely. I'm always trying to make it easier for us because it's a lot of work. It can be a lot of work, especially if you're on the road and you don't get to go home for a little bit and you got to keep going to the next show and you don't want to burn yourself out. So.
Oh yeah, setup is I think setup and takedown probably are the most tiring at a lot of conventions.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I hate that part, and then to sit there for a while. I'm enjoying signing books, meeting people, and as it gets close to the last day, I'm like, it's about time to do the takedown.
Yeah, that's the worst, especially if you're on your feet. I don't know how much you're standing at all. If you're sitting, that's lucky. I get to sit some, but if you're on your feet all weekend, the last thing you want to do is have to break down everything and get into the darn trailer, and you're like, you know. Yeah. And for us, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. We break it down, and then we have to wait till they give us enough clearance to get the heck out of there. So we can be there. We're oftentimes like one of the last people to get out the door. So it kind of stinks. So that's why I'm trying to find a faster way that even if we can just get a little clearance, we can just get out and get out of everybody's way. So.
Yeah, I have to say, back when you had Toothless, I always laughed and had a thought. Every time you were gone, you put a cloth over his head. I worked with horses for several years, and you do that when they're sleeping.
Yeah.
It makes it so. I always laugh because it's like it makes it even more real looking to me. And then I thought you needed to have a sound machine there of snoring.
Yeah. Oh, that's not a bad idea. We did have sound effects for a little while there. I found that a lot of too much animatronics will kind of scare kids, so I didn't really do that too much. But I like that idea. I actually at one point made like a little cardboard clock that said Toothless is taking a nap and will awake again, at this hour. So that's funny. Yeah, we did that with the cats too. I'd like to make something a little bit more. I had an idea to do for Toothless to look a lot like those hawk hoods, the ones that they do for falconry or whatever, the falconry hoods or whatever. And if you ever seen one, they're really creepy looking. I don't think I want to do it. They look like bugs or something. They have the really, whatever, but it would be a lot of fun. I always consider doing that, but other things to do.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah. You're not busy
yeah.
enough as it is. Of
No,
course.
I know. And I with Appa, I am actually going to, because I feel like he's, so uh, people friendly, family friendly, that I am going to try to do animatronics for the first time for him. So I will try to make his eyes blink. I will try to make him have wisps of air coming out of his nose. I hope that's a pretty good thing. Like I said, with the Momo, I'm trying to get him to be, get the head to be able to at least be able to move a little bit more with that. I'm still struggling with the cable system, but we'll see how far I can get with it. But I don't do much of animatronics at all, so this is a new adventure for me, and I'm looking forward to trying something different, and hopefully it'll work. So
Yeah. That's laid
I
plans.
I know a guy, so hopefully the guy will help me, and I won't look like a schmuck. So
Yeah. That always does help right there. Um, So, can you walk me a little bit through the process of how you design it? I mean, it boggles my mind to look at this, especially even watching you go through the steps when you post picture online. I'm like, how did you get to that?
yeah.
I do artwork, but it's all 2D, so I can paint and draw. That works for me. But
Yeah. So okay. So every one of them is a little bit different. It does help to have something in a smaller version. If you can get a sculpture or something of that creature already done, even a small version, that can help you immensely. Like Iron Giant was simple because that's more,
mhm.
math, if you will. All I took is the 16-inch version of him, and I sat there with a little piece of tape, and I guesstimated a certain length. And I'm like, okay, if I know he wants to be this big, and this is how big it is, what's the formula from this to this? So I was able to take it from here, that little bitty head, to go from there to a 20 by 20-inch model or maquette. And from that, I could do that 20 inches into 20 feet. So it's measuring and measuring all the way out. With more organic pieces, it is, you're starting with, the frame, or sometimes it's the outline. With the Battle Cats, I was lucky enough to find they did a wonderful Sideshow Collectibles version of them, and I could use that outline and design. It's almost like, what do you want, cutting out a silhouette of it, and that helps you with the core of it. But then you can start building legs from that, so it's almost like a topography where you're
Mhm.
cutting each sheet out away from it. And I found I figured out a way to do this. Is just by dumb luck, I think it was. But I essentially, once you build up the foam out like in sheets, and 2-inch sheets, you can wrap it up in the cellophane, like the packing cellophane that you probably use for your books or whatever.
Mhm.
And you can leave holes in towards the top of it, and you can inject that foam at 3, I was talking about, the 2-part liquid, down in there. And as it expands, you can actually forcibly kind of move that foam up and through the thing. So you can actually kind of make the muscles around the foam. So it's like
Hmm.
it expands out and it hardens. And if it overshoots it, you can always stand it away. If you don't get enough, you can inject more in. So it's, that kind of lends itself to that. But with Toothless, it was just many pictures. I kind of guesstimate a size. Like for me, it's a lot about just kind of visualizing the space in front of you, and trying to build up to match what you're seeing in your face. And everything kind of starts with the eyes. Everything starts with, for me, it's like, if you can get the eyes and you know the size you want, you can kind of build from there, and everything kind of falls back from that. You get the head right, you get the rest of the body, kind of thing. So I know that's kind of, every project's a little different. That's why I like the challenge of it. So to kind of say it's one technique overall, it's not. But I use the old tricks like overhead projectors. That's how I did like the background pieces for the Battle Cats. That helped a lot with, like, just, you take spray paint and it'll eat through the foam a little bit. So you just do the dark spaces, the recessed places, and you shoot that with spray paint. It eats it out, eats that space in a little bit, and then you can just take the foam and build it up around it. And so you got the layers and depth and whatever. So I don't, it's kind of hard to explain. I don't
Yeah.
know if that helps any, but
Oh, it does. It does. That explains a little bit. I was curious about how you put this together, but that's yeah.
yeah,
I see a lot of this has been you're applying your knowledge from education in this
yeah,
math, which, ladies and
a
gentlemen,
lot of
we
math.
found a use for math.
More math than you would think would be necessary, but yeah, and then with like the sculpting, of course, sculpting is, first and foremost. With like Toothless, I wouldn't have been able to do his head without being able to sculpt it all, and being able to mold and cast. That was another thing that I had learned and was taught, how to do it. And I found a different technique that I could do for a larger mold because, you're talking about, you can't use plaster, like they mentioned, these plaster Paris, that's super heavy. You can't really use resin. And especially in my case, I was building him in my house and I'm not going to pour toxic resin, So I had to come up with my own technique, which involved, a silicone, which is a stuff called Mold Max 30, which is your generic silicone that you can coat over the piece, and then you thicken it up by using some of the regular old clear caulking that you can buy from Lowe's, and then you start laying burlap on top of that. And what that allows you to do is start to add like the foam at 3 or the great stuff. I use great stuff first, and that bonds with the burlap, so it creates the mother wall. And then you put the foam over the top of that, and what that allows you to do is some flexibility, but it's strong enough to hold the shape long enough for you to pour the cast of it. The bad news about that is it's only good for pretty much like 1 run, maybe 2, and then you got to scrap the mold, which kind of stinks because there won't be another Toothless. I can't make another one really unless I start back from the original thing. So, but you do what you got to do. So, yeah.
You ever work in 3D printing?
I would love to. The only part that I kind of do now is I have a gentleman that helps me design the coins. I give people coins if they decide to get on top of the cat or and the dragons in the back. For Iron Giant, I had a guy design the bolt out of 3D print and was giving those out. And but what they'll do is they'll print those out for me, and then I'll take those and make silicone molds and then run those in resin. So then I can make multiple copies of the original one. But if you look closely, you can still kind of see the striation of the 3D printer kind of thing, which I try to get rid of. But it's like, it's still. But I'd love to do it. At some point, I'll have to sit down and learn that technique too. Probably when the hands start wearing out.
3D printing is. I'm still working on just basic art. So yeah, 3D printing is. My brother's getting into 3D printing. He's doing. In fact, I'm going to be in Knoxville for a gaming convention that he's part of, where he's selling landscapes and stuff for Warhammer and whatever. So he's getting into 3D printing. To me, it's just, I don't know. It's interesting. I find
I'm a little nervous because I know that they're designing them bigger and bigger all the time. And it's going to come to a point where if somebody wanted to make something that I make and they can just do it in 2 weeks versus, 4 months or whatever. And all they got to do is program it all in and it'll look pristine. And you're like, I'm out of a job. But, luckily it's going to be a while before your average guy can put that in their house somewhere and build something that large. So,
yeah.
But
right now we're hitting the Star Trek phase of replicators. So.
Yeah, they're pushing the envelope all the time, though. I know it's like they can start building larger and larger pieces or build it in sections so that you can assemble it later. But yeah, I know. I may be the way of the dodo bird pretty soon, but we'll see. So, but like you said, there's always room for that organic. There's always room for the personal touch. So I think that'll always stay around for a little bit. So
I always look at it from an art point of view. Is that I see a lot of like book covers, which is something that I work in and have worked with, and when the 3D world started becoming very popular, and people were doing 3D characters and figures and dragons and castles and all that. Someone said, "Oh, that's this is the way to go because you can get $60, hire somebody, they design it, you're good, instead of hundreds and hundreds to thousands of dollars to hire an artist to paint it."
Right.
Well, that's been a thing for more than 15 years now, and painted covers are still way more marketable than 3D covers. So
yeah, I could see that. I could see it.
It's like ebooks. Ebooks did not take over print books. They tried to, but they actually never did. So,
yeah. There's something about being, again, it's that tangibleness. It's being immersed and it's feeling, and the human connection versus the computer, which is there's still something too mathematical about it. I think, I don't know, but I think they, like you look at the first Transformer movies, you were fooled because those cars and those things could change, and they got the mechanics right. Though you can't beat it. It's like, holy cow, that looks convincing, but there's still, you can see it like Rogue One, where they're still trying to get that face right, and something's just not quite reading. Human, it's close. You're close, it's like you want it there, but you can throw it off. But in small segments, and of course now you got that face recognition thing where it can read your face and put it on somebody else's face. And that's scary, but we'll see how that goes.
I've seen a few of those. They are a little disturbing.
Yeah.
They are a
Yeah.
little disturbing.
Yeah.
So,
It's going to be, that's the longevity of these actors will now be like, well, now they can keep doing the work for years and never look older. And so,
we are getting close to the end of the show.
yeah.
I did want to ask you for so people will know, and so I'll know, what conventions do you have coming up so that people can find you?
Okay. We're doing Bangor, Maine here, not this weekend, but next weekend. After that, there's a little break in it, and then we're doing Spookala down in Ocala, Florida. I wish I'd written it all out. Darn it. It is on my Instagram and Facebook page, but I do know we're doing Comic Palooza. We'll be doing it MomoCon in Atlanta. We're doing, excuse me, MegaCon in Orlando. Cincinnati Expo. We're definitely doing Grand Rapids, Michigan, near the end of the year in November. We're doing Columbus at least for the beginning of December for GalaxyCon. Raleigh GalaxyCon. Huntington, I believe we just got approved for Lexington. We just finished Lexington. Huntington is sort of the sister company of that one too. So if you're in Huntington, West Virginia, that's a good one. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. There's some we're waiting on. We're waiting on Boston. We'd like to do Boston Fan Expo. And shoot, like I said, I will post up a brand new itinerary. Please, you can find us. My company's Brazen Monkey. I don't know if that's backwards or whatever, but Brazen Monkey by John Marks. And I promise I will put an updated list where we're going to be. I'm trying to think. I'm missing some.
I know my next convention is Motor City Comic Con here, and I'm up in near Detroit. It's outside of Detroit. I didn't know if you are going to be able to go to that one or not.
I wish. I think what weekend is that?
I think it's the second weekend of May.
Yeah, where are we in May? I think that's Spookala. I think that's where we'll be in Florida. So yeah, and then we'll do 4 shows in a row. And then we're back home, and then we do another 4 shows in a row, and then we're back home. So it's going to be that. I think there's 3 1-month segments during this year that will be out and staying out. So there should be a con near you. We're mostly on the east side of the country, unfortunately, because we're out of Indianapolis. But we do try to get this side mostly. I do hope to at some point go to the west side of the country and get to visit California and all these other fun shows. But we'll see. So.
Yeah, I know Fanboy has just opened up Las Vegas, so that's going to be that could be an opportunity.
There was definitely talk of us doing a Vegas show this year, but maybe next year. I'd love to do it. I know that we'd love to do Denver. We've been asked to do that at some point. We go up to Rhode Island. We're going to do Rhode Island Comic Con. Almost forgot about that one. That's a big one. That's going to be great. We love that one. Gosh, I'm blanking on a bunch of them. I'm sure. Houston, I think Houston and Dallas, Ocala, Orlando, Atlanta. What are our closer shows? Cincy. I'm blanking on a bunch. I'm so sorry. I should have had my list out in front of me.
Okay.
But yeah, by all means, check us out. There's got to be a show near you unless you're on the west side. And then I'm saying give us a couple of years and we'll try to get there. But yeah,
check out his Facebook page. We'll definitely be linking that on the Brian and Dan Hour page, and go on there, like his page, follow him because you can see all the stuff he's doing, and you can find out where he's going to be. You don't want to miss this. I am not overselling this. I'm underselling it. You need to see these to truly see how fantastic they are. And
I appreciate it, and I've been always told that you can't really gauge how big they are until you get there in person, and then to get up on one. I don't know if you ever got on the Battle Cats.
No, actually, I didn't get a chance to. I've only been to one con that you've had those at so far, and I was busy the whole time. I barely got to say hi before I was running again. So
if you get a chance before the show, after show, by all means, swing on by. We'll let you get up there or whatever. It is a little taller than the dragons were, so you're a good 5.5 feet off the ground. And it doesn't sound like much, but when you're up there, it's kind of imposing, and it's a kind of a rush because you're on this big critter, and it's a lot of fun. People are like, you get up there and like, oh my God, they're huge. It's like you had no idea. So I like getting that wow factor. So
To me, part of the wow factor, and I'll say this in my opinion, is a lot of Comic Cons get to be a little bit repetitive. You
Yeah,
have booth after booth after booth selling stuff. You have booth after booth after booth of people who are signing autographs for comics to the celebrities, and then you have food.
yeah,
And it's like, but then you have this, this experience. It's an experience. It's not just, shopping, which I love. I love booths. I love the shopping. I'm one of them. So I
yeah,
like that. But
yeah.
this breaks that monotony. That's something that I appreciate. And that's why
It's
I want places to have more something like this.
I'm actually kind of always been surprised that nobody ever thought to do something like this. Or I mean, I've seen in smaller scale some of the smaller. Of course, you see the vehicles. You'll see
Mhm.
everything from like the Back to the Future vehicle and the DeLorean and of course Baby from Supernatural and this sort of thing. And those guys are great because they people want to see those vehicles up in person and stuff like that. But to have the characters and you have all these people cosplaying, they wanna be in some sort of scene where they can feel like they're a part, and makes that just that belief, that
Mhm.
make believe, that imagination kind of become more real for them. And I'm so glad I could get to do that. And then I'm always trying to find what that next thing is that people really would love to be immersed in. And so yeah, it's a fun job. It's great to see people smiling and get them a little, take the world off their shoulders for a little bit. That's the best part of it.
My favorite experience, well, the last thing I'll hear is my favorite experience was at Con Nuga in Chattanooga, Tennessee, because my booth was very close to yours. I could see yours. But where I was, I could see people who couldn't see yours until they turned a corner.
Oh
And
yeah.
it was great
Yeah.
because the people who had met this before were like, oh, it's that. Or people go, oh my God, when they cross that corner because you're not expecting that. And that
Yeah.
was the best. I think that was the first time I saw Toothless and the White Dragon together were that one. And I mean I was there all day just eat popcorn and watch people turn the corner. That was the best experience.
That's cool. Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, they'll get the look. It's like
Yeah.
that's great. And the wow, I want to hear wow, or just somebody just stops and freezes. I mean, you can't get a better compliment than that. That's the best. So
Yep. Well, thank you for being here tonight. I look
thank you.
forward to seeing you again soon at one of the cons we cross
Definitely.
paths at. And I'm looking forward to seeing Appa when you get that done because Avatar Last Airbender happens to be one of my favorite series of all time. And when you said you were doing Appa, I was like, yes, I might just have to
Yeah.
experience this multiple times. So,
I'll be very curious I know Netflix is doing a live action series for it, and that's supposed to be in August. I'm very curious as to what their approach will be. Obviously, they'll probably do CGI for a lot of that, but the movie version I did see. I mean, I didn't actually watch all of it. I only clipped through and watched what they did with him, which was not at all what I kind of envisioned him to look like, which is interesting. So it's always, people will have different approaches. I hope people like my approach. I kind of always try to find that marriage between cartoon and reality, and try to make the cartoon look as realistic as possible. And I hope I hope you guys like it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think people will really appreciate it. And
yeah.
so,
And amongst the fandom for Avatar, the movie is not to be talked about. It's considered a gray moment or a dark moment in history, and
it's
we
so
don't
funny.
like.
I just got done talking to a gentleman who said, "Oh, I love the movie. I love the movie." And I'm like, "Well, did you watch the cartoon?" He said, "Oh, there's a cartoon." So it's like it's obviously perspective. It's like, if you've seen it, then you're expecting this. It's the same thing for He-Man, the cartoon, and then they do the Dolph Lundgren movie, and you're like, "Oh, that's not what I had in mind." So now, and there's a
Yeah.
new live action with that coming out. They actually have a young Prince Adam, and I guess
Mhm.
he's like 16, 18, whatever it is. And so it's going to be fun to see. Hopefully, God, I've heard that they promise they'll have the Battle of Cats and that stuff. And so I'm like, we'll see. I can't wait to see that one. But it's like what you were used to or what you've seen. And, you have your open mind, and yeah, but I get it. I get it. Some movies are just not what you thought they were going to be. So,
Yeah.
don't
Okay.
get me started on Daredevil. Okay. So
Yeah. I actually worked at Blockbuster when that movie came out. I've heard everybody talk about that one because
oh,
it was either they loved me for having it, or I got the preaching to why we shouldn't, and I'm like, I just work here, people.
yeah. I mean, it's one of my favorite comic book characters. I do like the Charlie Cox version. I thought that was great. I would have liked to see them kind of push it a little bit closer to the comic book. I mean, they did keep it edgy and gritty and realistic, and I like all that. But the Affleck one, it was like they could have done so much more, and I really wanted them to, and I just but oh well, yeah.
Yeah,
Live and learn.
Happens.
And
Okay.
that's why I keep the movie to Marvel, and then don't let Sony. No, I won't get on all that. I understand. It's like
we've had guests on here who were the writers and creators of Marvel Comics and DC Comics, and so yeah, they're the people. When I ask questions like this, I get a lot more what's right, what's wrong, and what they're missing. So
they know.
So
it's funny you mentioned that. I just watched the documentary on the guy that wrote the X-Men, the new team when the old five became the new international team.
Oh yeah.
And he was the writer director, whatever, of that for the next 10 years or 15 years or whatever it was. And that was fascinating to me that he took so much thought into these characters and really wanted to make them well-rounded and built, so there's more to it than people I think it's just drawing something out. And the story writing, and you have to think it through and know the development and all the angles, and don't paint yourself in a corner, and you gotta,
Yep, I've been through that one. Okay.
It's like, whoops.
Again, thank you for being here tonight. Glad
You're
to
welcome.
have you on, and maybe in the future we'll have you on again. Talk about when you get some of this stuff done. That'd be great. So we can actually maybe go and see some of it.
Yeah, heck yeah! Come on by. We'll do a live one there at the show sometime.
Oh, sure, that'd be great. Everybody, thanks for being here tonight. The next week, surprise guest, meaning I don't know who it is yet. So next week, I'll see you again on Thursday evening at our normal time. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.